Ron? Where are you? Where is Ron right now? You done messed up, Ron.
Hey, Ron here. Well, it's not me who done messed up this time. Not this time. Boy, I'll tell you what, David Miscavige done messed up. This is so incredibly embarrassing. And what I'm about to show you is such a strong sign of the continuing and inevitable decline and destruction of Scientology. So let me just show you what's going on here. There's actually more to this than meets the eye. And I'm going to give you all the context here. So what we are looking at here is the Twitter account of the actual power company in Johannesburg, South Africa. By the way, 1 million Twitter followers for the utility company in Joburg. That's I was really surprised by that. Okay, they tweet, currently disconnecting a church in Randburg for an outstanding bill of 877,000 Rand. Okay, converted to US dollars, that's $50,000. All right, so we click here on this picture, and just for fun, we zoom in. Uh-oh, that is the Scientology organization in Johannesburg, Florida. South Africa. Jesus, what am I talking about? Okay, and they even tweet, I don't know why they're tweeting this. This is just this morning, guys. Then they even tweet photographs of the technicians on site disconnecting power to a major Scientology organization. Okay, now let me show you something here. So this is Google Earth. Okay, we zoom in. We see 10 Hunter Street, Church of Scientology, Johannesburg North. Again, look at this photo here, 10 Hunter Street. Okay, back to, okay, we're going to go street view. Boom. And what do we have here? Well, it'd be nice if I got the right spot. The actual sign that they are tweeting a photograph of. My goodness. My goodness. There's some other things I'm going to show you in a moment when I provide some of the greater context for this. So let me go back to normal view. So here's the thing. Why is this such a big deal? You might go, oh, it's just some far-flung Scientology organization out in the middle of nowhere in Africa. By the way, Joburg's not in the middle of nowhere. Only an ignorant American would say something like that. But no big surprise that some Scientology organization in some far-flung area can't pay their electric bill. No. This is a really big deal. Johannesburg, South Africa, was one of the first 3 organizations that David Miscavige selected back in around 2004, 2005 to serve as the first test subjects for his what they call the ideal org strategy. And this was a real estate strategy fundraising scam that Miscavige started back in 2004. The premise of this was basically, the reason Scientology orgs aren't flourishing and prospering the way that we would expect them to is they do not have premises. Essentially, they don't have premises that are big enough and beautiful enough to really reflect the importance and the significance and the impact of Scientology. And he said, we're going to embark upon a campaign to take every single existing Scientology organization and purchase a new 50,000 plus square foot facility and renovate it and move in. And this is going to be the dawn of a new area of expansion in Scientology. The first 3 organizations were Buffalo, San Francisco, and Johannesburg, South Africa. Again, this was around 2004, 2005. So we're 17 or 18 years into the future. If this ideal org strategy was actually going to work, if it was based on anything sound, Johannesburg, South Africa should be a prospering, flourishing Scientology organization, flush with brand new Scientology public, tons of cash reserves. And instead, they can't even pay their electric bill. This is, even in Scientology land, the fact that a major class 5 org, what in South Africa they would call Johannesburg the Continental org, is doing so poorly that it can't even pay its own electric bill. This is, even in Scientology world, this would be considered a direct reflection on the incompetence of management. Now, let me show you some other examples of how this reflects on David Miscavige's incompetence. Back to sharing here. one of the reasons, I'll go to this view here. One of the many reasons that Johannesburg org would be failing so miserably is that David Miscavige opened up a massive new Scientology facility not far from Johannesburg, called the Kilyami. I'm going to pronounce it correctly. It's like the Kilyami Castle. I don't know how to say it. But this is a Scientology advanced org, which means it delivers the upper confidential OT levels. And advanced orgs are not supposed to be in competition with the lower level orgs for public. Why? Well, you can't join Scientology at an advanced org. The advanced orgs exist to deliver the OT levels. When people get into Scientology, I'm just going to show you like how massive this thing is. The property itself goes all the way. This is actually, that red dot is actually the entrance to the property. They have this entire thing. You can't even enter the property from the side where the castle is. Okay, let's go back to Joburg. One of the things that is supposed to, this Joburg org, this is what's called a lower level class 5 org. Class 5 means essentially, class 5 refers to the bottom non-confidential half of the Scientology bridge. You can only join Scientology at these class 5 orgs. There's smaller versions called missions, but for the most part, those don't count. You can only join Scientology at these class 5 orgs. You cannot join Scientology at these advanced orgs. Okay. That's why these things are not, for those reasons, these generally would not be in competition with each other. Here's the problem. Miscavige spent tens of millions of dollars to purchase and open this advanced org when there was no actual demand for its services. There aren't enough Scientologists in South Africa to justify having an advanced org in South Africa. So what has happened is that the advanced org in South Africa has now been the place that all Scientologists want to go and do their lower level services, even though that's not supposed to be the purpose of this org. Not only has this advanced org started cannibalizing all of the business from the lower level orgs in South Africa, it actually advertises to Scientologists all around the world, trying to cannibalize the Scientology business, even in the United States and Europe, because due to the exchange rate, it's cheaper to get auditing here at the advanced org in South Africa than it is to get auditing in Los Angeles or in Clearwater. And I mean, what a ridiculous, you want to talk about stupid management. Like Miscavige opened up this org to make it look like things are expanding, but things aren't expanding. And so by opening up this massive facility for which its services are not required, it destroys and cannibalizes the business of all the other existing organizations in Africa. It's a horrible waste of money, but it also pulls the rug out from underneath all the Scientology staff members in South Africa who now, if they're not even paying their electric bill, you know they're not paying their staff, okay? Now, just on the subject of horrible financial mismanagement, I want to show you another comparison, okay? This is Google Earth of Scientology's international management base out in Gilman Hot Springs, California, in Riverside County. This right here is the $50 million office building that David Miscavige had built for himself. The Scientology organization that Miscavige has legal control of is called RTC, Religious Technology Center. He built this building specifically and only for RTC. There's only about 15 staff members in RTC. Here you can even see Miscavige's private smoking deck. And he might be out there. He's so small you couldn't see him in the photograph. Okay, why am I pointing this as an example of mismanagement or financial waste? Guys, Scientology public aren't even allowed to go to this base. Scientology staff members aren't even allowed to know where it is. This is purely an indulgence. He would spend $50 million on an office building no one is ever going to see, but he won't spend $50,000 to keep the lights on at Johannesburg org, an org that's actually supposed to be making money for Scientology, an org that's actually supposed to be bringing new people into Scientology. If you want to talk about a return on investment, if Miscavige were to spend money on the organizations that are supposed to be making money, that would be a somewhat reasonable use of funds. But for him to waste $50 million on this office building, that's not going to generate any money for Scientology whatsoever. This is a perfect example of Miscavige extravagantly wasting Scientology money, but using it on himself instead of using it on the things that it is supposed to be used on. Okay, so let me get out of this view. And before I sign off here, let me just check my notes and make sure I didn't, there was a few points that I wanted to make on this. Okay, I covered the lower level orgs, covered the Joburg org. Oh, gosh, Manhattan, I almost forgot. This isn't even the only example that has come up of a major Scientology org not being able to pay their electric bill. In Manhattan, right off of Times Square, there's a big Scientology organization that even though they're in a building that's probably worth $20 million, even though you could throw a rock from that building and hit Times Square, this should, by any measure, be easily one of the most successful Scientology organizations in the world. They too cannot afford to pay their electric bill. The staff are told, take the stairs, don't take the elevator. We can't afford to pay the electric bill. Last summer, the air conditioning, the central air conditioning in the building broke. They couldn't even afford to fix the air conditioning. And yet they had a problem because the server room has to be kept cool and air conditioned in order for the server not to melt down. So, and the server room is also a place that needs to be kept secure. Not anybody's just supposed to be able to access the server room. But there was no AC. So they left the server room propped wide open so that it would at least get some airflow and some air circulation right on the first floor where any brand new public can walk in and access this thing. Okay, a Sea Org member walked by and shut the server door because they're thinking that door is supposed to be shut. They shut the door, not understanding how server rooms work and why they need to be cooled. The server room overheated, the server overheated, the whole thing melted down. They lost all of the information on the server. One of the staff members there was actually sending me recordings from the weekly staff meetings where they were making announcements about the fact that they were not going to be able to recover the information that was on the server. Almost all the information was lost forever. And all because they couldn't afford to fix the air conditioning. Now, this is somewhat at odds with the idea, the concept that people have of Scientology, that they're just absolutely flush with cash. They have billions of dollars. And yet these things are both true at the same time. Scientology money flows uphill. None of it flows downhill. And the percentages that have to be sent, they call it sending the money up lines, to Continental Management, to Middle Management, to International Management, to Golden Era Productions, to Flag for training. Almost all of the money is sucked from the lower level class 5 orgs and sent up lines. And you're not allowed to ask for the money back. You're not allowed to keep a greater share of the money than policy says you're allowed to keep. That is why you have David Miscavige buying $5,000 shoes, and you have orgs not able to pay their electric bills. I mean, it's one thing. It's not just embarrassing for Miscavige, just on a mismanagement financial waste level. It really is. This really is more damning. Like if you're a Scientologist out there in the bubble, in the bubble, you really do have to give yourself a moment and the mental freedom to consider what it means that one of the first ideal orgs in the world is such a failure, is such an afterthought, is so understaffed, is so lacks any lower level public of any kind. Anything they do have is being sucked up by the advanced org. You really have to allow yourself a moment to consider what this means for Scientology. What does it mean for the propaganda? The propaganda you're being fed at the events. You're being told all the time, Scientology is expanding more in the last year than the last 5 years, more in the last 5 years than the last 50 years, 62x since the release of Golden Age of Tech 2 or whatever it is. You can see that that's not true though, right? Joburg didn't just forget to pay the electric bill. And $50,000, how many years has Joburg gone? How many years has Joburg gone not being able to pay their electric bill to rack up $50,000 of debt? And what is Joburg supposed to do now that they have no power? No power? That means you can't run the course rooms, you can't run the auditing rooms, you can't run the Div 6 videos. That means Joburg Org is effectively shut down for business. You telling me David Miscavige didn't know Joburg Org owed $50,000 in electric bills? You telling me the CLO Africa didn't know that? The CLO Africa knew that. The CLO Africa doesn't even have enough money to pay that bill. But there is enough money in the bank to pay these bills if you take the money from int reserves and SO reserves. And yet it is so hard to get any money to actually flow downhill in Scientology. It took an absolute disaster, like having the power literally shut off, in order for continental management or middle management or international management to step in and do absolutely anything about it. A huge embarrassment, a huge example of the failure of Scientology. And I mean, there's more where this came from, guys. I mean, if you think Joburg is having trouble paying its electric bill, just just wonder about those small orgs in the United States. It really is a perfect example of how Scientology is very quickly deteriorating and failing. All right, everybody, that's all I got on this for now. I have much more coming even later today, so stay tuned for that. Thank you all for watching and listening. Thanks to everybody who watches until the very end, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.